So I'm going to be answering this question wearing two virtual hats. One is that of a cryptographer and sworn developer team member. And the other one is as somebody who has first-hand experience with these things, as about 10 years ago I found myself on the receiving end of a criminal investigation for abetting the crime of online piracy by running a file sharing service. So since then I founded and been the president of the Hungarian branch of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So I'm somewhat familiar with the legal environment as well. Now, unfortunately, the legal environment is not static. It differs from place to place and from time to time, and it's a moving target. So we cannot provide a solution that gives you a technical magic bullet for all kinds of scenarios. Rather, we can arm Storm users with various tools that might help them in the particular jurisdiction and legal environment in which they operate. And since my time is limited, I'm going to talk about one particularly interesting technical solution which protects the swarm nodes that happen to store the content. So just to explain what that means, there are many participants in Swarm. So in Swarm, somebody uploads the content, somebody consumes the content. Most of the nodes who even see that content are just caching and forwarding it. However, due to the content addressed DHT nature of Swarm, it is actually easy to find out, given a piece of content, which node is actually responsible for storing it long-term, not just caching. So because of that, we want to provide means of encryption so that the nodes that store the content not only don't know what they are storing, but actually they can claim to store anything, basically. And for that, we take a page from Claude Shannon and his pioneering work in cryptography from 1947. So back then he introduced, so long result. So back then he invented unbreakable cryptography. We're not using that for day-to-day encryption for various reasons, because it's not suited for the way we want to communicate in privacy, but in this case we have a different goal. So Shannon's encryption, the one-time pad, what it does, it splits information into two equally sized pieces, and both of them are entirely random. However, if you perform a algebraic operation, typically it's the bitwise XOR, then you will get back your information. And the reason it's unbreakable is because for any ciphertext and any plain text, there exists a key, and it actually can be calculated, which would result in that particular encryption. So any particular information could be the ciphertext of anything. And in order to understand how that works, I would like to show you a short demonstration of what actually plausible deniability means in practice. So this is so easy computationally that you don't even need computers, so it can be done on a piece of transparent paper. So here are two. So can you see what this is?
No.
So this is the Linux mascot, Tux. Hand it around, can take a look and see how it works. Don't worry, I have another one. So as you can see, this is also Tux. Here. Right. And if you pull them apart, right? Yeah, there it is. So if you pull these things apart, just turn them around. So I will be talking while you look at it. So what this means that if you have one of these pieces from this paper, one of these pieces of paper, not the two together, then nobody can accuse you of storing part of one particular content because it could be anything. So for example, let's say the number 8 is copyrighted and you're storing number 5 and somebody is storing number 3. Of course 5 plus 3 is 8, but you know it could be any other number. And the implication of this is that since there are so many ways to create that random chunk, in this case, like if you imagine as you're handing this around that you are the particular node that stores it, of course tux is not infringing material. It's okay to have two pieces together that add up to tux. However, because it's content addressed and based on the hash of the content, we can actually generate these two pieces in such a way that they are not going to meet on the same computer. So on average, we only need 2 attempts. So we try one, and if it doesn't work, we throw it out and we try the next one. And so for each chunk, we need to perform on average 2 trials to make sure that the 2 will actually never meet on the same computer. And just to show you how important that actually is, so now I would like to ask you to give me the transparent one, no, only the transparent one, and for you the solid one. And so these two have never met on the same node. Like this. Second.
Maybe.
Right, so here. So as you can see, this actually happens to be infringing content. This is Mickey Mouse. So the point is that we're going to provide you tools with which you can upload content so that it ends up distributed in Swarm in such a way that even if it contains Mickey Mouse somewhere, nobody will have them on the same hard drive. These two will be guaranteed to be in different halves of Swarm. If somebody happens to have them by accident by caching, then it is actually provable that they're only been caching it. They were not the long-term storage responsible for it. And if if they need to show what they were storing, they could always pull up tux and show that, hey, this was not Mickey Mouse, this was tux, just as you have seen it. And by the way, if you recombine those two papers that are still handed out, I will leave there, that's also Mickey Mouse. So that's basically how it would work. Thank you for your attention.
Sorry?
Yes?
Just one question, this allows me not to get maybe personally sued or something, but I can still be asked to delete it, right? It's still possible to find the other, the matching, or the other side of the one-time pad.
But it can be anything, so at that point you can claim that you have been framed.
Yes, you can. Yes, but you might have to delete it.
Well, no, you might actually need tax. I mean, you just imagine by the same token, like part of Star Wars can be part of your family album, and you actually might need that piece of data to.
So the point here is that none of these random pieces of information which have no discernible structure, none of them are guaranteed to be part of only one file. Them can be part of 2 files, 3 files, any number of files. And actually, they most probably will be. So the point here is that what you have on your computer cannot be infringing content by the virtue of it being possibly a part of anything. These both are pretexts for censorship, and we want, just like Ethereum wants to be a financial network that is impossible to suppress and censor, we want to build Swarm in such a way that nobody can get into trouble because of participating in swarm, but together swarm is actually strongly resistant against censorship.